Well, the pin that holds the bevel gear onto the shaft, that one I drove out no problem. This one over here, I tried banging it from both sides and it doesn't move at all. I'm not even convinced that that's a pin now. Now I'm wondering if that's two nubs for a wrench to grab on. I don't know, it's because I mean I hit it pretty damn hard on both sides and it didn't move at all. And both sides look the same diameter, as opposed to the bevel, the tapered pin that I knocked out. I could clearly see one side was the large side, one side was the small side, just like with this one. And I just tried prying gently on this bevel gear, and it does look like the hole is out of alignment now, so it looks like that gear will slide on that shaft, which means if the shaft wanted to, it might be able to come out this way, except that little collar that I can't get off is going to be a problem. But then again, this hole, once the bearing's out of here, is plenty big enough. So maybe if I could get this to pull out this way. And then on the back side there's this weird flat part, which I don't know what the deal is there. I wonder if that's to put. No, this doesn't make sense. But I am going to see if I can find something to wedge in there and get a wedging action going. How about this? That's as far as I can wedge it. It definitely moved out. Come on. That's it. I can't wedge it out any further because now the end of that shaft that was sticking out from this yoke assembly is now almost flush with it. So that's as far as that's gonna go. And that collar that I was concerned about, that is definitely moving out with the shaft. So that confirms my suspicion that if I can just get it out all the way. What I need is I need a way to pull this shaft out. Yeah, right. Oh, it's like a cup that the bearing sits in. It'll come off now because of the. Should clean the shaft before I try moving it out here. I got nothing to explain to me how the hell this is going to come out. I wonder if that inner cap, if I unscrew that, and the bearing will come. Well, what the hell. I need a long screwdriver for that one. Another example of when I buy a tool that I think, yeah, it'd be nice to have one of those. I don't even remember where I got this one. The regular handled screwdriver, regular bladed screwdriver. It's perfect size and it's got a super long shaft on it, so I can get in here. Son of a gun. The spark that I just saw tells me I just broke the tip of this screwdriver off right in that slot. Bummer. No, actually, I didn't break the tip of that screwdriver off. It just slipped out of the slot. That screwdriver, upon closer inspection, Someone had reground the tip to a very sharp taper, probably for some really specialized reason, some job they had, and that created a problem. Actually, now that I got the screw broke loose though, I could probably use that one. The other thing I could do is I could use my long-handled 1/4-inch nut driver that I have and just put a bit, regular screwdriver bit in it from one of the little kits that I have. It's cheapo kits, I get several of them. But again, nice with the square shank on the screwdriver blade there, and use my 1/4-inch open-end wrench on there. I can hold pressure on it in one direction to keep it from slipping out, and then put some serious torque on it. Should have known that was going to happen. I should just leave it on its side. Now, some of that swamp bottom that's in there started to ooze out, so I decided to put it back up vertically anyways, even though I'm going to have to be a little more careful about knocking it over. See if I can get this screw before it falls into the abyss. There, you got it. Got gloves on. Problem is I keep going to work the camera, getting grease all over the camera. At least this new camera, the way the lens is mounted on a swiveling head, pretty much eliminates the problem of me getting grease on the lens, because every time I shut it off, I can flip the head down and it acts as a protector for the lens. And sometimes I don't even use the button to turn it on or off, because it's set so that if I swivel the head down, it automatically shuts off. If I swivel the head up again, it turns on, which is nice. Alright, bedtime for the kids. And judging by the stomping feet and yelling, my wife is handling it to some extent. Yeah, there's no way that was going to fit through there. That's not the answer. You dummy! Yeah, so all that does is, now that exposes that bearing. I didn't want that bearing to come out anyways. Could care less. The shaft is pressed through the bearing and through the bevel gear. Let me see if I can rotate the bevel gear while holding the shaft. That way I'll know whether or not that's a tight press fit, or was it just a tapered pin's job to hold that. Now, my luck's not that good. So this shaft is pressed through the bearing and through the bevel gear. It's tight going through both of those. That's why I'm now having such a hard time getting it out. But maybe now that I've taken the bearing retainer off, if that's outer bearing, the outer diameter of the bearing is looser, maybe that'll come out with the shaft, and then I'm only dealing with the press fit into the bevel gear itself. Capiche? Too bad these threads are so fine, because if I had a way to screw a nut onto here, I could maybe put some kind of a disc on here, screw a nut on, and then use a I don't have one, but I can go rent one from the auto parts store, the slide puller deal. That's what I think I'm going to have to do here. Use a slide puller on this. Maybe I can find a nut that will go on there. Well, those are some really fine threads on there. This is a fine threaded bolt that I had, pretty big one. And the threads on here are even finer. These threads are so fine they make this look coarse. And I know this isn't coarse because I had a coarse thread bolt about the same size and I saw what that looked like. So now I'm thinking either this is metric or those threads on the end of that darn thing are some kind of a mongrel thread. Because, yeah, so I got my thread gauge out here. I don't know what you're thinking, Steve. Could you find a rustier one? I look, I probably could. Here, let's see what if I can figure out what the hell this is. Nope. Coarse, coarse, coarse. Coarse, of course. Oh, the ones on this side, yeah, the ones on the other side here are finer. Those are the ones I gotta go after. A couple of threads on the very end are kind of trashed, like I might expect. I like it. It's a match. 24 TPI. Is that a standard? See, that's what happens when you get a guy who's not a machinist working on this stuff. Right now, if a machinist is watching this, he's going to say, yeah, 24 TPI, Steve, that's a standard. Or he's going to say, 24 TPI, what the hell you got there? Alright, I found out that as far as that being a standard thread, well, yes and no. I did find some bolts that had 24 threads per inch, but they were all much smaller diameter, very small. Once you get up to the large diameter like this, I think 20 threads per inch is like standard. So, checked with, I didn't check McMaster Car, but I checked Fastenal, didn't even have a listing for anything that would thread onto this. So I think I'm out of luck as far as something that's just going to thread onto there. Now, if I had a working lathe, I think I could actually make something to thread onto here. But of course the Atlas situation is that I can do some facing operations and some other simple stuff on that with the lead screw disengaged. But until I get that bracket made, the Atlas is not going to be able to do any threading. And the well, the Hendy's far from ready. So I went to the auto parts store and I picked up the puller kit, and this is what I've rigged. I put the old pulley that was on here, which I may very well end up breaking in this attempt, but I'm willing to risk it. Yeah, it just pulled out quite a bit. Okay, that bearing is now out. Cast some light on the subject and see what's going on. Bearing's out. Oops. And what actually happened, that bearing cap that cocked in the board is actually what's stopping it. Dope. Get that out of the way. Try that again. Should do it. There we go. There's the bearing and the cap to retain it. Now I should be able to remove the screws that are down inside there and take this whole support unit, this yoke assembly, and the whole shaft out of there. And then I can maybe knock the pin out on that bevel gear and remove the shaft. And then I can get that bearing out if I decide I want to. Which, yeah, looks pretty full of crud, so I guess I will.